Hey learners, welcome back. In the video series of chapter 1, that is financial statements of companies, today we are going to learn about the subheading called as other current liabilities. Stay tuned because this video is going to be really helpful. The fourth heading, that is current liabilities, and under current liabilities the third subheading, that is other current liabilities. Let's have a look over here. See, examples are mentioned. Let's have a look onto the first example. It says current maturities of long-term debt. Now what is this? See, whenever there is any long-term borrowing and on that long-term borrowing some amount is due to be paid, but that due date is within 12 months of the date of the balance sheet, then such amount is called as current maturities of long-term debts. I repeat, in case there is a long-term borrowing and of that long-term borrowing there is any amount which is left to be paid, but the due date is within 12 months of the date of the balance sheet, then such amount of that long-term borrowing will be called as current maturities of long-term debts. Very simple. Let's move forward. The second example which we can see over here is interest accrued but not due on borrowings, and the next one is interest accrued and due on borrowings. So over here we have not due on borrowings and over here we have due on borrowings. Let's understand these two with the help of an example. For example, think that there is a company and that company has to pay interest on its debentures. Now how does the company pays interest on its debentures? They pay interest on debentures in a half yearly method. What is a half yearly method? Half yearly method means twice in a year, 2 times in a year they are going to pay interest on their debentures. So what are the two dates? Let's take for example, it is 30th June and it is 31st December. So on these two dates the company has to pay interest to its debenture holders. Understood? Very simple going. Now for example, the company has paid the interest on 30th June properly. Whatever interest was accruing, they have paid it to the debenture holders. Very good. But problem arose on 31st December and they could not pay the required interest on 31st December. Clear? 31st December was the date when they had to pay the interest, but they could not pay the interest. Now also keep in your mind that though the interest is not paid on 31st December, the company still has time to pay the interest. Till what time it can pay? It can pay till the year ending date. That means till 31st March it has the time limit to pay, right? So till that time, that means from 31st December till 31st March, my interest is accrued. Definitely it is accrued, but at least it is not becoming due because I have time to pay for these 3 months. In between these 3 months, any of the day I can pay. My interest is accrued, that is correct, but it is not due. The due date has not come. When will the due date come? When the financial year will change. That means even after 31st March, if my interest is unpaid, then my interest will become due. But till now, no problem. Till 31st March, I have the time to pay. I can pay my interest. So that period, the interest for that period, it will be called as interest accrued but not due. Okay, so 31st December, my interest is becoming accrued. From the next day, that is from 1st January till 31st March, I have the time to pay, and that is interest accrued but it is not due, right? But the problem will arise when? The problem will arise when even on 31st March 2019, the interest remains unpaid. Then the concept of interest accrued plus borrowings, that will come. Clear? Very simple. I repeat it once again. See, my interest was accrued on 31st December. Now my interest has just become accrued. It has not become due. When it will become due? It will become due when the financial year will change. That means 31st March will pass away. But before 31st March, I have time to pay that accrued interest. I can pay on 15th Jan, I can pay on 31st Jan, whenever I feel like. In between these 3 months, I can pay. So my interest has definitely been accrued, but it is not due. So for these 3 months, that is till 31st March, beginning from 1st January, that period, that interest will be termed as interest accrued but not due. It is not due. When it will become due? It will become due when the year ending date will also pass. That means it is also unpaid on 31st March. Then my interest will be called as accrued also and due also. Clear? Very simple concept. Interest accrued but not due on borrowings. Interest accrued and due on borrowings. When it will become due? It will become due when the year ending date has passed. Clear? And when it is not due, it is not due till the time I have the extension to pay my interest. Clear? Very simple. Now let's move forward. If we move forward, we see some more examples which are given, which are like the income received in advance. Definitely that is also my current liability. Unpaid dividend. I had the liability to pay the dividend, but I did not pay. So that is a liability on my side, unpaid dividend. Excess application money which is due for refund and interest thereon is shown under other current liabilities. Very important. We have already discussed in our previous lecture what do we mean about share application, what do we mean about share allotment, right? What happens in share application? In share application, the shareholders give us money, right? First, they pay us money. Now, for example, they have paid me extra than what was required. That means there is some excess application money which has now to be refunded by me. Okay, suppose they had to pay only rupees 2 as their application money, but most of them have paid rupees 3. So they have paid 1 rupee extra in the first stage. Now it becomes an obligation for the company that they have to refund that extra money, and also they have to pay some interest on that. So that is again creating a liability on the company, and thereby that total amount will come under other current liabilities. Very simple. And next we have other payables such as outstanding expenses, calls in advance and interests thereon. Provident fund payable, GST payable. Now outstanding expenses, we all know what it is. Let's concentrate over here. What is calls in advance? Now calls in advance, again we have discussed, calls is you can say the third or the fourth step during the share allotment and everything. First we have share application, then we have share allotment, and then we have calls like first call, second call, final call. Okay. Now we have discussed about calls in arrear. What is calls in arrear? When the shareholders fails to pay their call money, that is calls in arrear. But the opposite concept will come when the shareholders have paid the call money in advance, and that is what is called as calls in advance. Okay, you can take for example that along with the allotment money is the second stage. Along with the allotment money, few of the shareholders, they have paid their call money as well. So that is calls in advance. Clear? Now as they have paid before the due date, so that is a liability for the company. The company was not supposed to get that money so early, isn't it? And also the company has to pay interest on that call amount to the shareholders because they have paid in advance. Okay, clear this one, calls in advance concept? Okay, so we are done with the subheading of other current liabilities.